I'm a farm kid from Northeast Indiana that's been serving in the state legislature now for 8 years. And as we've traveled and talked to people, it's not been about us, but about what we believe in. And it's the same common cause that we all have in this room, that we believe in America, that we believe that freedom and liberty are guaranteed by the Constitution, and that the government has a role, but it's a limited role, and that that message is what's really built support around us. And I think people are looking for just real people. Who would have thought a year and a half ago that we had the chance to send a full spectrum conservative, somebody that's has some experience, but not Washington experience, and just a fresh perspective to Washington, D.C. in a time that we need it the most. Our country is really at a crossroads. It's immigration now because of the Arizona law, and now it's also in healthcare. People are just fed up. They're tired of it. They want to see the federal government fulfill its constitutional responsibilities, and that immigration is that one of those that they should be taken care of. And instead, and that's why we're going to keep seeing states do what Arizona did, is because the federal government's not fulfilling its responsibilities. Instead, they're meddling in what the states should be doing, whether it's healthcare or education. They should be focusing on the border and our national defense. Government is not the answer to our problems. As Ronald Reagan said, government is the problem. Those who are in Washington who want the status quo, who want to keep the power in Washington with the politicians, are going to come at us really hard this fall. They don't want to see a change. They don't want to see us go back to more public service rather than a career in politics. And this is why our campaign is so strong, is because of the grassroots. You have to build, anything you build has to have a strong foundation. And that's what we've done, is we've built a strong grassroots organization, and that attention has garnered us national attention to where Mike Huckabee's now come in and endorsed, to where Jim DeMint, one of the strongest conservative senators in the United States Senate, has come in and endorsed. And so we have the most balanced attack for the campaign, and it's because we built it the right way. And I believe that that's what's going to make us successful tomorrow. And it's going to take people telling their friends and family to go vote. Being a state legislator, we used to elect our U.S. Senate candidates out of the General Assembly, out of the legislatures, until the 17th Amendment came along and repealed that. And I could argue that both ways, but one thing that did was that it kept the federal government accountable to the state governments. And then the Congress was elected by the people every 2 years. And I think that gives me a perspective that the other four don't have, is I have seen how the federal government likes to come in and dictate to us as states what we can and what we cannot do. They try to manipulate us by holding money over our heads, things like that. So that perspective is one thing that none of the others have, and I think it's important because I believe that the states they are responsible for the majority of the government in our particular boundaries. And so when the federal government tries to come in and usurp that authority, you lose that freedom and flexibility because it's not the federal government's responsibility. It's not their role. And the constitutions are very clear, whether it's a state constitution or the federal constitution. And to have that understanding gives me a perspective that the others don't. Two of them just went straight to Washington and only know how to govern from Washington. I have the state legislative experience that I can take to Washington and say, you know what, I know Indiana folks can handle this just fine by themselves. This Tuesday and this November, eventually, once we get there, we're going to send that message that it is time for us as Americans to stand up, and that we are awake, and that we are paying attention, and that we want the type of leadership in Washington, D.C. that's going to stand up for America and for the Constitution.